Hi, my name is Robert Chelle with Chelle Law, and my law firm assists physicians with employment contract issues. One frequent question that comes up, and it's a complicated one, is if I have signed an employment agreement, but I don't want to go through with it, can I back out without repercussion? The answer to that is it depends. So when you sign a contract to start employment, then you are bound to those terms. And so just because you don't want to move forward with the contract doesn't mean that the employer hasn't suffered some kind of damages due to your desire not to start. And so let's just kind of like back up and break down each stage of the process. So first, the employer offers you an employment contract, and I assume you're going to either have it reviewed or negotiate the terms, and then you sign the agreement, which will generally happen, in the future. So if you're in training, maybe you're in your last year of residency or fellowship, you could sign contracts that won't even begin for a year. If you are currently practicing somewhere and then looking for a new job, sometimes the other employer is willing to start essentially as soon as you are ready. And for most people, their without cause termination notice is 60 to 90 days, somewhere in there. And so some employers will give you the contract and then expect you to start, within shortly after the 60 or 90-day period ends. Okay, so you've signed the contract, the terms are binding, the employer is expecting you to start, and then something happens, right? So kind of what led up to the decision to you wanting to back out of the contract will also kind of dictate how the employer reacts. It will also depend upon kind of the, ideology of the employer. Some employers are very forgiving. They understand life happens. Maybe you had a significant other that was supposed to be in one location, and then now they have to move to another, and you need to follow them. Maybe there's some kind of illness in the family that's going to require you to move back home or somewhere else. Those personal situations where there is just something that was completely unforeseen, and that your situation has changed, you just absolutely cannot go through with the contract. You need to confront the employer and just say, look, this is what's happening in my life. I really appreciate your interest. I appreciate, the agreement that you offered me, and I understand you are relying upon me to start. However, I simply can't because of these issues. Most of the time, if you come to the employer, honestly, with those type of issues, they're going to be understanding, and they'll most likely let you out of the agreement without any consequences. Okay, so let's do another scenario. You sign the agreement, you're all excited to start, and then another job creeps up and says, hey doctor, here's more money, here's better benefits, here's more time off. And now, although you're kind of tied into another agreement, you want to leave. And not due to family circumstances, just due to, pure compensation or, something else that makes the contract better. Well, I can tell you in those circumstances, most employers are not going to be super excited to let you go just because of that. Now, they certainly can't force you to start, right? So there will be some kind of notice requirement in your contract. And so I guess theoretically, you could just give the without cause termination notice, even though the contract hasn't commenced, and then get out of it. So what are the potential damages if you do essentially, terminate a contract before you even began? Well, I think it would depend upon when you gave notice that you weren't going to start. So if you wait 1 week before your start date and the practice is expecting you to come, and they've gone through the credentialing process and they've gone through the privileging process at the facilities they're going to need privileges for you at, and they've hired staff, additional staff for you, and they've covered your medical license and DEA registration, and they've done all of these things. They're relying upon you to come in and start generating income by seeing more patients. And then you say, hey, I know I was supposed to start next week, but I'm not. Well, that company has some damages because of your short notice. And they could potentially come after you. When I say come after you, I mean either sue you, threaten to sue you, or many contracts have arbitration clauses where the case would go through the arbitration process. So the more time that you can give to the employer to let them know that you are not going to fulfill the contract, the less damages that employer has suffered. Most employers simply want nothing to do with litigation with other physicians. No matter what the reason is, if an employer gets a reputation as being litigious and going after physicians, that spreads fast amongst the physician community, and it will be more difficult for that employer to bring on good, qualified physicians. So for the most part, people and organizations simply don't want to kind of get into a legal fight with the physician, regardless of how much time you gave them. Now, on the other side, and this mostly applies to physician-owned practices. Let's say you were scheduled to join a smaller physician-owned practice. At least in my opinion, those type of employers, or maybe it's a single physician-owned practice, those type of employers, in my experience, are much more likely to go after or sue or go to arbitration against another physician. It's just kind of, I think it has, I don't know. I mean, if I had to be an armchair psychologist, I think kind of the entrepreneurial spirit in a physician opening up their own practice and kind of being self-employed and being their own owner makes them more aggressive in defending those type of issues with people who are pulling out of starting what they were expecting to be a good, positive working relationship. So can a physician back out of a contract after signing an employment agreement? Yes. However, there may be repercussions involved with that. I worked in the legal department of hospitals before, and the risk management department would always go through training with the physicians, and they said the physicians who if there was some kind of clinical issue, the physicians who are upfront and truthful and go to the family and explain what happened and there's a negative outcome and don't hide things, they are much more likely to have a situation where the family is not going to pursue any kind of legal action. I think the same goes for, it's kind of similar to this situation. If you go to the employer, explain what's going on, just let them know this is not going to be a good situation for me. And then even if you force me to start, I'm going to immediately give notice, or give notice even before it starts. That's not a situation anyone wants to be in. So you do have some leverage, even though you haven't started, and the fact that nobody wants to bring in an employee that they know is just going to immediately leave within the required notice period. So anyway, hopefully that was helpful. If you have any questions, please give me a call. You can reach us at the number listed below in the description, or you can reach us through our website, chellelaw.com. That's CHELLE law.com. And appreciate you watching the video, and take care.